Okay, in this chapter we're going to talk about arrays. We'll do one-dimensional arrays, we'll do two-dimensional arrays, and hopefully we'll show you maybe a vector class. So, why use an array? What is an array? An array is a collection of items. You've probably seen them before in some other programming languages. One thing about an array is they're always the same data type and the same name. So here's our little example. Maybe I had a variable where I needed a string for person 1, a string for person 2, for person 3, for person 4. Well, instead of having all of those strings as individual variables, I can specify an array, and I thought the animation was going to come up by itself. There we go. String person, and then this for specifies that that's how many variables are in this list. Okay, so here's kind of some examples. I've got an int called odd numbers, and that list is 100. I've got grades, they are doubles this time, that's a list of 10. String tweets, that's a list of 200. Now, when you're dealing with arrays, you can use what's called an initializer list. And what that will allow you to do is declare the array and populate it at the same time. So now we have Jenny, Joe, Paul, and Fred. Okay, when you populate this list, or even when you don't, it doesn't matter, the very first position in the list is position 0, and the second position is 1. So we're always kind of off by 1. There's 4 elements in the list, but my position index values are 0, 1, 2, 3. And the index value is pretty important because that's what you use to access each of the elements in the list. Let's show you. Oh, I have more initializer list examples. So here is declaring an array of primes under 10 that will store all the prime numbers under 10. There's using an initializer list. Do have a semicolon at the end. Here's another one. This one's storing letter grades. So letter grades is going to be a character. So this time I'm going to say char, and then whatever I want to name it, letter grades. And it was going to store the letters A to E, so it's going to be A. Let's just show you. Char, letter grades 5, A, B, C, D, E. Now the reason I have single quotes is because it's a single character. If I had had strings, then I would use double quotes on it. Declare an array named days that stores the days of the week, Sunday through Saturday. Okay, that one is going to be our string. Days of the week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would actually crash on us. Now, this is so you don't want to do under the amount, but if you ever wanted to, you could do over the amount, and that would work just fine. Wow, I got to go through all my animations now that I stopped okay. So 20 would work. Even though I'm not declaring 20 values, I would have a couple of values that were not defined. But if you ever wanted to declare just a portion of your list in your initializer list, that's fine. This is the max size that it can possibly be, though. Okay, initialize elements. I have no idea why I have this here again, but there's some more examples. Oh yeah, I do. Suppose we wanted to specify a particular position. So I'm going to change primes under 10 position 0 to be a 4. So what that's doing is this position in the list is no longer 2, it's now a 4, which doesn't really make sense because that's not a prime number under 10. But, you know, we're changing it. Allow the user to enter in values for prime. Okay, so you can also allow the user to enter in and set it to a variable. So here I could say cin primes under 10 of position 1, and they can do a cin statement for that particular variable. Set position 1 of letter grade. So here's this one setting position 1, which is actually the second position in the list. And more of the same. There's another cin statement for position 3 of the list because it's 0, 1, and 2. Quiz. Okay, here you go. Here is your quiz. You're going to try and figure out. I've got a const that has a variable size that's equal to 9, and then I've initialized my array 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 values. Your turn. I'm going to give you the answers right after you try and guess, but try and guess what the value is. What is the value of size? That one should be an easy one. Size equals 9. So size is equal to 9. What is the value of nums of 0? Keep in mind nums is your list. Nums of 0 would be this 1 right here, the very first position in the list. Okay, what's the value of nums? Size minus 1. Size is 9, so that's position 8. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's actually the last position in the list. So anytime, this is where we kind of get an off by 1 error. You never want to access nums of size, which is our next question. Nums of size. This would give us an error because it's not in the list. It's outside of the list. It's one beyond the end. Okay, how about nums of 7? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be our 128. So you kind of get where we're going on this one. Nums of 1, this would be our value 2 because this is 0, this is 1. And nums of negative 1, that would also give an error because that position doesn't exist. Okay, so you can use a loop to iterate over your array values. So here I have a const int days of 7, then I've got all my days of the weekend. If I wanted to display those like in a cout statement, I mean obviously I could do a cout statement for every single position in the list, but that's not very efficient. What's easier is to do a for loop. So here my I is going to start at 0 because 0 is the first position in the list. I'm going to iterate so long as I'm less than, and you don't want less than or equal to because you never want to go beyond the list. Then an I++, and so here I'm just saying days of I, and it's going to print out the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6 value. All right, passing arrays to functions. This one's a weird one. If you look at this function called change, it has a parameter of an array. My array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, right? There's my array. So if I were to do a cout statement for num of 0, I would get the value 1, right? Then it's going to call this function call, and it's going to come up here. This is a pass by value. I do not have a star there. And it's changing position 0 to be 42. Unfortunately, when you pass an array to a function, even if you just are intending to pass a copy, it automatically is a reference. So if I were to look at this statement, nums of 0, pass by copy, theoretically that should just print out 1. But since arrays don't work that way, I guess. Arrays automatically pass a reference, so even though it's going to automatically update and give me that 42 value. Okay, now you can also have arrays of not just primitive types, but you can have arrays of structs. You can have arrays of classes if you want. So here's an example of a struct that has a date, a month, a day, and a year. So I can create an array of dates that's 15 long. Now, remember when we do a struct, when you declare just a regular struct, you have to specify the dot day, the dot month, the dot year. This time I have to add in what position of the array I'm specifying. Now, alternatively, we could have said date equals, you can specify it all in line, just like you can with a regular struct. You just have to add what position it's in. So that is an array of structs. Okay, now catch us in the next video and we'll continue on with this lecture and talk about two-dimensional arrays.